now. I'm going to start with a presentation on the program. I think the presentation will probably take maybe 20 to 25 minutes, give or take. And then I want to make sure that there's time afterwards for questions and for you guys to get to maybe know us a little bit and meet each other. Unless there are any questions, I'm going to go ahead and start. Any questions to begin with?
Nope.
Great. And, you know, Jay, and everyone else, as I do the presentation, it's a little bit hard for me to kind of see everyone's screen. So if you have a question, just, I think we're small enough, you can go ahead and unmute and ask your question. And, you know, it'll be pretty informal in many ways. Okay. All right, here we go. So can you guys see my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
And is it full screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So welcome Syracuse Architecture 2021. Victoria's introduced a lot of us. On the right, there are a few more people that you will undoubtedly meet and get to know as part of this program. And I'm going to just keep going ahead. So this is the beautiful Syracuse University in upstate New York. We just last year celebrated our 150th anniversary. So we're 151 years old. Our School of Architecture is 148 years old. It's one of the oldest schools of architecture in the country. And to just kind of give you a little bit of context, Design Intelligence is a ranking platform, and it has ranked our school for both undergraduate and graduate architecture degrees. And in 2020, we were ranked 5th for undergraduate programs, most admired undergraduate programs in the world. And for graduate, we were ranked 16th. Our dean, who Dean Michael speaks, is one of the 25 most admired educators over a number of years. And one other note, our Master of Science program ranked 7th in the US and 22nd globally by the best architecture master's programs for 2019. I don't have all of the stats for 2020. They're not, sorry, it's for 2021. They're not completely out yet, but that'll just give you a small taste. In terms of skills to think about, in terms of top rated architecture programs, these are rankings based on professionals and offices that have hired architecture students and have ranked their skill sets. So in terms of communications and presentations, we're number 9, design technologies, number 10, design theory and practice 13, and interdisciplinary studies, practice management, and transdisciplinary collaboration, we are ranked number 9. These are all really great stats given how many schools of architecture there are. This is our architecture building in upstate New York in Slocum Hall. It's a total hive of activity where students, faculty, staff, and visiting lecturers and critics engage in discussions about architecture and the future of architecture. Just a small snapshot of some student work and some of our spaces. And this is the Fisher Center, which is located in Manhattan, New York. This is the seat of the Master of Science in Real Estate Development program. Our program is based in New York City. It's an incredible place to study real estate development and architecture and the multiple forces that shape the built environment. The university has a long reputation for excellence in research and success of its graduates. There are a lot of supportive services for students as a graduate in terms of career placement. The university offers quite a few opportunities, as well as the School of Architecture itself. So we're really committed to the success of our graduates, and they are amazing and are very able to enter the world and pursue their professional development. Just a little bit about just a few people who are alum of the Syracuse School of Architecture that are off doing incredible things. So from the left to the right, Nicole Doso, she was a Bachelor of Architecture at Syracuse. She was a director of SOM and worked on building tall buildings, skyscrapers in New York and around the world. She's worked on One World Trade Center and is currently the vice president of the Vornado Realty Trust. Michiko Ishida, also an alum of our school. She's also worked on World Trade Center, and she is the vice president of Silverstein Properties, which is a real estate development company. But she does design and architecture within that office. Annabelle Seldorf, an alum of our school. She is a leader in cultural institutions, has built many in New York City, including this building, the David Swerner Gallery. She started her own office, which is an incredible place. And we have a relationship with many of these alum in providing internships. Just a few more. David Rockwell, an alum of our school, a real leader in theatrical design, design experience, interior experience. He is the founder of the Rockwell Group, which has over 250 employees. Bruce Fowle, one of the founders of what is now called FX Collaborative. This is the Javits Center, which their office renovated to make high-performing as well as bird-friendly in terms of bird-friendly materials. He's a real leader in urbanism and sustainability, was one of the early champions of LEED, and has really done a lot in terms of policy within New York City around high-performance building code, especially for skyscrapers. His office has built many of the skyscrapers that shape the skyline of New York City. And then lastly, a younger firm, Hillary Sample and Michael Meredith from MOS or MOS, both alum from the School of Architecture, very active in terms of theory and practice. They teach at Princeton and Columbia. And so this is just a small snapshot of some of our really incredible alum. All of these alum are based in New York City. New York City is a real hub of culture for architecture and a real center of opportunity. So the New York MS Red program, which you are all admitted to, is a new program. We're really excited to launch this. And this is an overview of New York City and some of the surrounding New Jersey area. This is the Fisher Center. So the Fisher Center is located in Midtown of Manhattan. And it is in many ways one of the centers of New York City. And what I'm going to talk about now is a little bit of the guiding principles and the mission of the program. So this total focus on New York City. New York City is the largest and one of the most diverse cities in the United States. And it has many issues that are unique to the city, but are also applicable to cities around the world. This is a view of Midtown Manhattan. On the left, it's just over a year ago, and on the right is just under a year ago. And so one of the things that we really look at in New York City are current issues that our cities face, including the pandemic. And in this particular juxtaposition, the question, who is our public space for? Who are our roads for? So on the left, you can see almost gridlock, the streets almost fully occupied by vehicles. Streets take up 30% of our cities, of New York City. And if you think about what is left for pedestrians and what is designated for vehicles, most of which are personal vehicles, there's a real issue about who is our city for. On the right, you see, again, Midtown Manhattan just under a year ago. With the pandemic and in a dense urban environment, the need to give access to open space, fresh air, and to have a public body that can circulate in our public spaces in a safe manner. So questions of health, questions of public safety. This is a street that is for people. Much of it has been taken over by pedestrians. You also see different kinds of forms of transit, bicycle, This street in particular was closed during the pandemic for pedestrian traffic. Another view, the past year has been an incredible year of upheaval, and much of it has been tragic. So on the left, again, at the start of the pandemic, questions about who is essential, who are our essential workers, who can be out and about, who has the ability to work from home and remotely, and who doesn't. And on the right, just one snapshot of the many uprisings around racial justice and against police brutality. A very different picture of what takes place in our public realm, an empty public realm, and a public realm full of people voicing their dissatisfaction. So when we think about the city, New York is an incredible space to study architectural form, urban form, and the regulation of form. New York City is the first city that adopted a municipal-wide zoning code in 1916. So a real innovator in terms of the regulation of form. It's also one of the birthplaces of the skyscraper typology. And one of the things about a skyscraper is that it duplicates the area of land that the building occupies. And Cass Gilbert, a famous architect of the Woolworth building and one of the kind of original innovators of the skyscraper typology, has famously called a skyscraper a machine that makes the land. And so these are two buildings in New York City, the Flatiron building on the left, the Equitable building on the right in Lower Manhattan. The Flatiron building duplicates the floor area by 22 times, and the Equitable building duplicates the floor area by 39 times. This, in many ways, the completion of the Equitable building in 1915 was one of the things, not the only thing, because many skyscrapers were starting to be built, but there was this question that arose, which is how to negotiate individual and collective interests. So the right of property owners to their development and to make profit versus the collective interests of the city. And this was really the birth of zoning. And so here is a very simple zoning diagram from the 1916 original zoning code, which limits how you can build in terms of bulk or floor area. So on the left, it's showing how many times the area of the lot the building can build up. And on the right, it's showing the setback principle, so that the street or the main corridor of the public realm is always given access to light and air. And this has really shaped not only the skyline and the buildings of New York City, but buildings where municipal zoning codes have been adopted around the US and around the world. So this question of public and private and how to negotiate the two, partnerships between the two, who the city is for, how to make the city more equitable, more just, more sustainable. These are all questions that we face now in a very urgent way, but are questions that you, the younger generation, will take forward in transforming our cities. These are two images of public spaces. The one on the left is a privately owned public space. This was the site of the Occupy Wall Street encampment protest in 2011. And on the right, we see a public space, which is City Hall, which also held an encampment protest just last summer for justice for George and against police brutality. Both of these, the two kinds of public spaces, are very differently regulated because one is private and one is public. And that has an impact on how people can assemble and how people can use that public space. Right in the center of it all is the Fisher Center. I touched upon it before. It's in the middle of Manhattan. Here's a short look at some of our spaces. We have an incredible facility, which is on Madison. So the studio, which is on the bottom left-hand corner, overlooks Madison Avenue. Right now, we can have up to 30 students. With COVID, the occupancy, we were open for in-person teaching, but have had to modify the occupancy. We also have a whole variety of lecture halls, classrooms, completely outfit for digital learning, and technology. The Fisher Center is not only an academic institution, it's also a hub of culture in the city. We host a lot of events that are for the architecture, real estate, and kind of building industries community in the city. This was an event from spring 2014. The Fisher Center opened in 2013, and it was a symposium that was looking at urban development in Taipei. So even though we focus on New York City, there is a lot of global comparisons. Here we had 3 studios studying Taipei, one of which was in New York City, and we all came together to have a symposium on the findings. Other public events, Raquel Ramadi from New York City and Liz Folletta from Los Angeles discussing the history, legacy, and future of zoning. Raquel Ramadi was one of the chief urban designers for this New York City Department of City Planning and did a lot to renovate the zoning code in the 1970s and 80s. Liz Folletta is an architect and a developer, does a lot in terms of zoning in New York City, in negotiating between architects, developers, and policy, or what we might think of zoning as one tool of public policy. Eve Picker, who is a leader in fintech and has created a development platform. She's an architect and a developer. She created a platform to crowdsource equity-based development, small development projects that also democratizes investments and allows people to support local projects by investing as little as $200. And on the bottom, we have Henk Ovink, the Dutch ambassador to the UN for water issues, a real leader in climate change, especially around water resources and management. And he has done many programs with us in New York City in the past. Justin Moore and Ifoma Ibo leading a discussion, urban designers and architects leading a discussion on community-led development and a workshop with our students. So our public events really take the program into a larger context and engage professionals from around the world. A brief look at some of the student work. So the MS Red program is new, but the New York City program has been in existence for many years and has focused on real estate for many years. And so we look at sites all over the city. We partner with local organizations. So this was a partnership with a nonprofit called Help USA, which develops and manages supportive housing for previously homeless individuals. So this is looking at the housing crisis, not only in New York City, many cities face a housing crisis, but this is also looking at affordability at the deepest levels, those who really have the lowest means. And just an overview, the real estate class and the real estate emphasis we have in the beginning, a real estate class that coordinates with a design studio so that the look into a project is very comprehensive. The project is the same for both classes, and students go through and develop their own program and concept. We don't give you a program brief. You will design your own program based on your analysis of the site, analysis of zoning, demographics, community needs, market analysis. You will put together a financial model and pro forma around the project, do an in-depth investigation in the neighborhood that goes beyond a kind of architectural or urban analysis. It's in many ways sociological analyses and market analyses that you will do. This particular group, as an example, really focused on food justice in East New York and the fact that East New York doesn't have a lot of food options and is a food desert. So they designed a program that included not only housing, but a nutritional center with education, a fresh market, and much of the program was geared around food entrepreneurs. You will visualize the project architecturally, you will design it. Other examples of student work. So this is a live work typology that was done also in East New York. This was a cooperative housing where living is based on shared open spaces between neighbors as a form of community stewardship. And you'll do physical modeling, digital modeling, all forms of representation to present your concept to a varied audience, not just architects, but community members, real estate investors. And with this program, you will understand the nuts and bolts of bringing a project from inception through completion in terms of design, but also in terms of development. So we have a lot of reviews. We have students put together pitch books around their real estate argument. Another emphasis of the program that I'd like to touch upon briefly is resilience and sustainability. New York City has over 575 miles of coastline. And so it is a city that's very susceptible to climate change, increased storm events, and flooding. And so flooding is something that we look at quite closely. And when we think about New York City, our weather system and our climate is not governed by political boundaries. So this is a view from NASA of Superstorm Sandy that converged upon the East Coast of the United States in 2012. This is, on the beach in New York City. Global warming is here. This was a completely destroyed Rockwell Peninsula. And so questions of how do you deal with climate change? Do you move communities out of vulnerable areas? A very controversial proposition, given that many communities have deep roots in these places. Or do you remain and build back? Here on the left, it's selling property and relocating people. On the right, it's building individual houses up above a design flood elevation, which is a very costly endeavor, especially for things like single family homes. These are really hard questions to ask. When we ask these questions, we do a lot of research in the field. So we'll commission a boat, we will go around Jamaica Bay, looking at the territory. We do workshops on the beach. This is a workshop with a landscape architecture firm where students were building sand structures to see how flooding occurs. On the right, we work with local organizations. This is a local activist on Broad Channel Island, one of the founders of an organization called Jamaica Bay Watch, which was cataloging the decline of marsh islands in Jamaica Bay. And marsh islands are incredibly important, not only for the ecosystem, but as mitigating factors against storm surge. So students will, again, build models. Many of them are physical. A lot of the dynamics of water are hard to simulate, but we'll also do digital models. And much of this work is about envisioning the future. So thinking about not just the next 10 years, but the next 100 years, the next 500 years, and thinking about how our structures might work with the natural environment. This is one of the reviews from one of the studios on Jamaica Bay. We have incredible practitioners based in New York, architects, urban designers, real estate development, policymakers, all come in to give a really comprehensive look. And that's one of the great assets of New York City, is that there's such a wealth of intellectual community here in the city. We're also very immersive, so we take students out in the field all the time. All of our classes have field-based components. So whether they're going to a cannery in Brooklyn, or a water treatment plant in Brooklyn, or the Center for Energy Affordability in the Bronx, looking at high performance building materials and how they go together. The bottom left is a workshop we did with Arup, one of the eminent engineering companies in the US and the world. They're really a global based office, doing a workshop on the 100 resilient cities and what resilience is and how to enact it. Also, from the kind of middle bottom, this is Hudson Yards, which is the largest development project in the United States. And it's currently, not yet completed, but quite a bit of it is already completed in Midtown. A brief look at some of our faculty. So I direct the program. I also teach. I teach studio. I teach an internship class. Sean Amsler, one of our incredible instructors on real estate development. Ifoma Ibo from the New York City Department, Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, teaches both studio and also a design justice class. David Vega Barakowitz, an incredible urban designer and architect whose focus is on transit and equitable transit, as well as urban design. He teaches a planning class, and Julie Torres Moskowitz, who leads a class on eco-urban systems, looking at high performance building envelopes, waste streams, and energy streams in New York City. We also have a really incredible rotating faculty. Again, New York City is just such an incredible place to tap into leaders in the field. And they're here. We also bring in people from around the world. So Damon Rich and Jay Shin from Hector has done a summer studio with us. They've done so much in terms of making policy public and looking at politics and design. Damon Rich is a MacArthur Genius Grant, and really incredible practitioners. Jared Della Valle of Alloy. Jared's an architect. He is also a developer and has created Alloy, which is an all in-house architecture, real estate development, and they even have construction management and construction. So looking at a very holistic and comprehensive view on bringing projects from the very beginning to the end, not only in terms of design, but in terms of finance and development. Elma van Boxel and Christian Corman from ZUS, they're a Dutch firm based in Rotterdam, looking a lot at bottom-up architecture and urbanism, who our cities are for, and making equitable and resilient cities. We will have many public events. So this is an exhibition after one of ZUS's studios, where we invited not only the vast community of Syracuse alum and kind of a larger network, but also completely open to the public. They partnered with the Van Allen Institute on a symposium and had a really incredible series of events that culminated in this symposium on gentrification. And other ways that we really bring students into the field and focus not just on theory, but practice. We have an internship class. This is a core part of the program. And we pair students with offices in New York City, and we've started to do it beyond New York City. Our offices include architecture, real estate development, urban planning and design, policy, research, landscape architecture, interiors. So there's really a wide range of experiences. And one of the goals of this class is to also discuss professional practices and the many ways to practice. This is just a small, we probably have over 70 offices that we've worked with in the past. This is just a really small look at offices we have worked with in the relatively recent past. And with this program, so it's a 30 credit program, which can be completed in a year and a half. There are some options in terms of how you sequence it, but this master's program does also, it's a STEM designated program. And so you have the ability to work in the United States if you're an international student under OPT for 3 years. These are just a few places that our recent master students have moved on to work in. So incredible offices, some small, some big, some US based, some based all over the globe. And this is a look at our curriculum. So there are some options here. The main things I'd like to emphasize is that the first semester is really a pairing of architecture design and a real estate development course, where the two courses coordinate. The projects span the two classes, and it is an immersive look at architecture and development in New York City. And this will kind of give you the whole overview and take you through the process from start to finish. We have a number of electives that focus on real estate, urban design and policy, and architecture. So a resilient real estate and a resilient real estate development, land use and policy course, a course focused on sustainable construction systems and building systems. We have an advanced finance course and a legal course that's really all around sustainable real estate development, law, and business. I would say that sustainability and resilience undergird all of our classes, as do questions of equity and justice. The New York City internship experience can be taken in a couple of different places. And in the end, there's a capstone design, independent research, and the internship class could be taken in the last semester, or it could be taken in the summer. So this is a brief look at the curriculum, and that is my presentation. I think at this point I can open it up for questions. So that was a little bit longer than anticipated. Any questions?
Please feel free to chat, or you can turn on your video as well if you want to personally ask a question.
Have you guys spent a lot of time in New York City? Are you familiar with the city?
Hey, Angie, thank you for your presentation. It was very nice. Yeah, I have spent some time in New York City. I have been there before. Maybe one question I have as an international student would be, what is the typical path that I could have after finishing the grad school there?
That is an excellent question. So I think that this program really gives you the skills to enter practice in the built environment in a number of ways. So as an architect and a designer, I think you'll also have a comprehensive understanding of how policy, development, and architecture work together to shape our cities. And that can take you so many ways. I think that you will be well equipped to enter a development office, especially bringing design intelligence to that endeavor. I think a lot of our grads and a lot of our students are very interested in even starting their own practices and having those practices not be only architecture practices, but development practices. So the acquisition of land, the development of land, the financing of projects, and if that project is managed or sold. I think if we think about the power of architects to shape our environment is oftentimes limited by policy and money and funds. So I think development is a way to, and looking through the development lens is a way to potentially capture more control of a project and have a more holistic understanding, even if you're not in a development office, a really comprehensive understanding of the things that make a project actually happen. Many projects don't happen because of budget, because of construction sequencing, because of community opposition. That's a very common one in the city. And so I think that our graduates will actually be very dexterous and able to enter the building industries at a number of levels because of this comprehensive understanding of the forces that shape the built environment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Where are you coming from? Where are you
I'm in
based?
I'm in Lima right now. I'm Peruvian.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yes.
excellent.
Actually locked under a lockdown right now, so can't escape home. Yeah.
Yes. What about some of the others? If you want to share where you're from or your experience with the city, we can totally talk about what it's like to live in the city, how the city's changing. I didn't really talk about housing. I think that could be a question. And Esther, our program manager, organizes a lot of our housing, though I think for graduate students, you may want to take on a full year lease yourself because you'll be in the city for a longer period of time. A lot of our students right now are only in the city for a semester. So we house them in more, kind of temporary housing, which is excellent, but it's much more affordable to take on a year-long lease, I would say.
Yeah.
Oh, I see we have a question from Jay in the chat. This is a great question. So Jay's question is, given the current pandemic situation, are the courses going to be online? And right now, so as of March last year, our New York City program went online and we were teaching online. This semester, we are back in person, but in person is hybrid, meaning that it's a residential program. Students are living in New York City. They have the Fisher Center, our academic facility, as a home base. Everyone has a permanent space within the center. You have a desk within the studio space. We have a model making room. And what's really nice about that is it's challenging, I think, as we all know, to work from home, and everyone's situation at home is really different. Many people are in crowded homes. Multiple people are trying to work at the same time. And so the Fisher Center will remain open. We anticipate that students from all of our programs will have the opportunity to be residential, to live in New York City, and the Fisher Center will be open. We have incredible support staff within the Fisher Center. We've had to limit the hours. Usually in the past, architecture students had 24/7 access to our facility. They could come and go as they please. Because of COVID-19, it's really important to maintain a safe and healthy environment. So right now, the Fisher Center is open Mondays through Fridays from 8:30 a.m. until 10 p.m. And our students are allowed to access and be within the Fisher Center any or all of those times. They have the option to take classes online from the center or in person from the center. Studio is both in person and online. And when I say that, I mean, we have a number of in-person components, but because every student's situation is different, and there's also this chance that students may feel sick or get sick and may not be able to attend in person, everything is simultaneously offered online to accommodate our students. So we expect that in fall 2021, when the programs opens, that it will be residential, though there will likely also be an online option for those students who want to take that option. And that's something that we have to kind of figure out more on. Also, I think it's probably dependent on, for international students, visas and the ability to get a visa in time. For this year, for this fall, it was very challenging. Many of our students, especially in Asia, ended up staying in Asia, and we had, and either opted to do things online, or we had an option, not for the MS Red program, but for another program to take classes in China with an instructor in China. So we are aware of the situation, and we're committed to a safe and dynamic learning environment. And, you know, to kind of sum up, we expect there will be in person, but also likely online options for those who need. Esther, I don't know if you want to add anything to that. If I missed anything, just feel free to jump in, or, you know, Lauren and Victoria.
Maybe one thing to add is that all the classes have all the classes that we have now, even if they're partially online, they also have city component where students, to complete assignments, need to visit sites and report on sites they visit, or group projects that they do that are based on exploring a part of the city. So not only students have access to the Fisher Center, but the professors are really committed on focusing on the city. And despite the pandemic, we're still able to take advantage of what the city can offer in this moment.
I think another thing I'd like to say about the pandemic is, if any of you have concerns, you know, please feel free to share them now. You can also reach out to me, Esther, Victoria, or Lauren about your concerns, you know, because many, you know, what we offer is very based on also our students' needs. And so we try very hard to accommodate students' needs.
Jay has another question about the internship, and he's asking if the students need to find the internships.
So the internship program and class here is a very special class. We find the internships. It's also possible for you to find an internship and bring it to the class. But one of the really wonderful things that I think is quite unique about our internship class is that we find the internships. We have relationships with offices. Our internships have a number of components. We bring all of our offices into the class to present on their office so that all students can experience or learn about the range of experience, the range of offices, not just the office that they're working on. And we work very closely with students to find them the right match. This takes a ton of time and is really challenging. Our internships, you know, we don't have an unlimited amount of internships. So typically we have the internship class be application-based. Students apply to the class, and based on the number of internships we have, we admit students, pair them with offices. The students will interview typically with 3 offices. And then students will give us their preferences, offices will give us their preferences, and we make all of the final matches. The reason for this really intensive process is just about the quality of the experience. Also kind of maintaining a level of internship that is really high quality, where our mentors are very committed to the learning objectives of the class. Some things about the class, some assignments you have to do, it's not just about working in an office, it's about understanding that office, its structure, its mission statement or agenda, interviewing a founder or a key principal, having that office come in and speak with the entire class. It's a really close relationship that we have with offices. And that is something that I think is quite special and unique. So absolutely, if you have an internship and you're very excited about it, bring it to the class. It's just a matter of us making sure that that office is committed to the level of experience and mentorship that we hold for our program. But many students do that. Most of our internships we find for our students.
That's great.
Yeah, and also about this, I would like to add, sometimes we had, sometimes it happens that the office is so pleased with the intern that they extend the internship after the class and after the semester is finished. So one very great thing about our process in matching the students is that we really careful select what are the students' interest with what the firm is looking for. So I think that that's an additional value of the internship class and the internship experience.
That's a great point. A number of our students, I mean, have after graduation been employed by the offices that they enter. So it is the start of a real relationship that can be lasting.
Mm-hmm.
I have another question. In terms of the Capstone project, it's mainly research, or could we do some kind of research that could end up in a business model or some like project in the future we can continue to work?
Absolutely. So the Capstone Project is really one where you're developing your own project with an advisor. And those projects, I think that there are many opportunities for those projects to potentially overlap with practice. So it's possible that you may develop a project in partnership with an internship that you had done earlier, and you want to work with an office to continue to develop a proposal. So I think that there are many opportunities to have it live in a kind of more academic realm, live in a much more practice-based realm, or span the two. And I would say that the capstone would absolutely include the development principles that would make the kind of business model for, like, have a kind of economic argument or business argument for the capstone. That I think is something that we could do in many, many different ways, but it would be an element of capstone.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Absolutely. These are great questions. You see, I'm just looking at the chat also. Excellent. Victoria's shared some of our other events.
Angie, I had a question from one of the students privately about licensure with the MS programs. And I was putting it in the private chat that while our MR program leads to licensure in the US, there are ways that students can appeal to NCARB for that. And if anyone else would like that information, I can put that in the whole chat and not just my private chat. So just let me know.
Thanks, Victoria. And yeah, our Bachelor of Architecture degree, which is a 5-year undergraduate degree, and our Master of Architecture degree are both professional degrees. The Master of Science degree that I'm presenting on, the Real Estate Development degree, is a post-professional degree. It is not an accredited degree that if you do not have an accredited degree, this degree will not make you eligible for licensure in the United States. I think most of you are international, and honestly, I'm not sure what the specifics of the reciprocities, between the international degrees and the US accredited degrees. But I think Victoria will be able to share a little bit more information on that. And if you could add it to the chat, I think that would be helpful. This degree, the MS degree, is a very concise degree. It's 30 credits. it could be completed in a full academic year. It could be, I think many of our MS students in the past have opted to do the program over a year and a half. But it's really, I think that there are abilities to compress it or extend it based on your needs and the course offerings. Because our facility in New York City, there are probably going to be some opportunities for you to take some classes online at Syracuse, but because our program is based in New York City, it's not upstate. So the course offerings are more limited because our courses are offered in New York City, and the university has a smaller footprint in New York City. But I think the trade-off with being in a real center of architectural and urban innovation and just an incredible metropolis is, the practical and praxis-based opportunities in New York City are really the things that we're building a lot of the program on.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put out a last call for any additional questions. I do invite you to look at our web site for joining us for additional sessions. We'll have ones that will be conversations with the dean. We will have sessions with career service and financial aid. So, some of those questions that you have about internship opportunities or types of jobs that students obtain after completing a degree with us can be answered there. We'll also have a session with alumni and current students, so you can ask them what it's been like to be a student here at Syracuse University and how well our alumni have done since graduating. As we know, this MS Red is an inaugural program. However, many of our students have taken these courses through the New York City program at the undergraduate and graduate level. So a lot of them have some great experience as well that they can talk to you about. And so with that, I'd like to thank my co-hosts this morning, this evening, this afternoon, from whatever time zone you're joining. And I'm hopeful that we will get a chance to see you again in the very near future. Please feel free to reach out to us at any time. I'm going to type our email address down below here. It's msred@syr.edu or the graduate program, which is archgrad@syr.edu. Whoops, I did not spell that right. That's my fingers hitting two keys. There we go. And so please feel free to write to us at any of these emails, and we'd be happy, or our personal emails, you have those as well. And we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. We're very hopeful that Syracuse remains on your radar and that we get to meet you next fall. So thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a real pleasure to have gotten to meet you.
Congratulations, everyone, and thanks for joining.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining.